the exact same Bitcoin setup that sent prices skyrocketing in 2017 is playing out again. Everything is pointing at a massive surge in liquidity that will send Bitcoin straight to $500,000. Back in 2017, a very specific Bitcoin setup triggered the next phase of the Bitcoin bull run and sent Bitcoin's price to new all-time highs. That exact Bitcoin setup is playing out right now. And if you stick around, I'm going to show you exactly how you can profit from this and what moves you can make right now to position yourself before the real explosion. Now let's dive in. Bitcoin's liquidity pump that could make you a fortune. Pay close attention, guys. This is going to be a very important video. Okay, so here you see a tweet by 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗹. And he's saying, once global liquidity starts rising, Bitcoin will skyrocket. Now, let's explain through a sequence of tweets and posts what this actually means. So here you saw in 2017, when this particular setup happened, we saw that the price of Bitcoin exploded. And actually, as a result, we saw the top of around $17,000 per Bitcoin. Now, if you overlap that with what we're currently seeing with this current setup, then actually this might be the catalyst that we need right now that will drive Bitcoin to new unprecedented heights. So Lyn Alden, which is a very well-known investment researcher and analyst, she created an article stating that Bitcoin is a global liquidity barometer. And she's saying that Bitcoin could be the purest liquidity barometer, because as global liquidity expands, Bitcoin tends to thrive. Now, what exactly is this global liquidity? Well, with global liquidity, we mean all of the money in circulation. So here you see a chart of the global M2, which is the global money supply, and Bitcoin's price. And here, this is in percentages. So the blue line that you see is the year-over-year increase in the money supply. Sorry, sometimes it's an increase when it's below the 0% line, and sometimes it's a decrease. Sorry, sometimes it's a decrease, sometimes it's an increase. But here you see when the blue line tends to go up, that's usually when we're also seeing increases in the price of Bitcoin. For example, here in 2017, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You see that the blue line suddenly goes up very rapidly, meaning that the global liquidity is expanded. And as a result, we also saw a top forming in Bitcoin. Next, the next cycle, 2020, 2021, again, we saw the blue line going up. And again, we saw that Bitcoin also surged as a result. And right now, we might be at a very important point in time where we see the liquidity go up again. So the global M2. And if history repeats, and of course, it's no guarantee that history will repeat itself, but oftentimes history rhymes. So that's why it's important to study previous patterns to have an understanding of what might happen in the near future. And here you see just another perspective. So here we looked mainly at percentages, year-over-year percentages, but here we actually see absolute values. So here you see Bitcoin's price and the global M2, the orange line. So the blue line is Bitcoin's price and the orange line is the global money supply. And you see that they're very much related to each other. When the orange line goes up, the price of Bitcoin also tends to go up. So what we see is we keep seeing this orange line go up over time, meaning that governments around the world are expanding the money supply because central banks are printing more money. And as a result, when money is almost infinite in the system, everyone tends to search for something that has real scarcity, meaning Bitcoin. And that's why hedge funds are now buying Bitcoin, pension funds are buying Bitcoin, Fortune 500 companies are buying Bitcoin. Everyone wants to get their hands on as much Bitcoin as possible because that will help them to protect against all of this inflation. Now, here this chart shows the directional alignment of Bitcoin with global liquidity in the previous 12 months. So here you see a couple of different investments. So you see the S&P 500, Bitcoin, you see gold, you see the emerging markets fund, you see treasuries, you see bonds. And Bitcoin tends to have the highest directional alignment with global liquidity, meaning that if global liquidity goes up, then there's an 83% correlation between Bitcoin going in the same direction as the M2 money supply. So in 83% of the cases that the money supply expanded, Bitcoin also went up in price. That's basically how you can interpret this chart. Now here's a tweet by Jamie Coates. He's saying, the central banks are capitulating, the liquidity spigots are opening, and Bitcoin is about to go much higher. My composite global liquidity momentum model, MSI, has provided the first bullish regime signal since November 2023. Recall that Bitcoin rallied 75% from November to April before the regime flipped bearish. I posted at this time, so he's referring to a previous tweet. Now he's saying over the past month, the Bank of Japan and the People's Bank of China have added around 400 billion and 97 billion respectively. The broad global money base has expanded by $1.2 trillion. So the global M2 has expanded, which has been significantly aided by a sharp decline of the US dollar. And this suggests that it could be coordinated with the Fed's consent. Drawing a comparison with similar stages in previous cycles, obviously it won't play out exactly as it has in the past. But here you see in 2017 when this happened, Bitcoin rallied 19x. That's crazy. And in 2020, when it played out, Bitcoin rallied with 6x. Now in 2024 and 2025, let's see, he thinks that 2 to 3x is his estimate. So for Bitcoin to meet this target, the DXY, which is the dollar strength index, needs to be below 101. Anyways, so here below you see his analysis. And what this shows is whenever we see a green line on each of these three signals, it is for him a sign that global liquidity is expanding and that it will trigger a next phase of the Bitcoin bull run. So here we see it in a bit higher quality. So at the end of 2024, which is 2 months ago, we saw that this was triggered. And now we are in this next phase of global liquidity expansion. Here you see a tweet by Crypto Rover, and he's saying, China is already starting to add liquidity again. Historically, always once this happens, Bitcoin pumps. So here you see those liquidity cycles. Here in 2020, we saw that China again started to expand its liquidity, and we saw that that correlated with the first big Bitcoin top, and later it expanded again, boom, and it correlated with the next top. Now we're seeing that China is starting to add liquidity again. We are at a point where the market has dipped a little bit, and now this might be the catalyst that could send Bitcoin to new unprecedented heights. So the formula for Bitcoin, or for a Bitcoin rally, historically means that Bitcoin thrives when central banks print money. So that's exactly what we've been talking about, the People's Bank of China, the Bank of Japan, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of European Central Bank. Those must be printing money, meaning that the global liquidity expands. Interest rates must be low, and the global money supply must be expanding. Every major Bitcoin bull run has followed this exact formula or setup, and the same thing is unfolding right now, right in front of our eyes. For example, the Bank of Canada injected 31.5 billion into the repo market. Here we're seeing different tranches of liquidity that they're adding. So here you see the first round, 9.2 billion. Here, 9.6 billion, 12.6 billion. So that's one important bank, the Bank of Canada. Here you see total assets of major central banks. So we see the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the People's Bank of China. So all of those have been printing money since COVID and at a very rapid pace. After which we saw a little bit of a contraction, and now liquidity is being added again by those same central banks. Now let's look at the interest rates. So again, we want interest rates to be low. So here you see a chart of different types of interest rates, the 10-year, the 2-year, the 3-month. So all of those are important interest rates to have a look at. And what we're seeing here is that over time, you see that interest rates can fluctuate quite a bit. Here in the 1980s, we saw very high interest rates that was needed in order to gain control over the crazy inflation. But now we're seeing much lower interest rates. And after, in this previous few years, we actually see that the interest rates are slowly dropping again. Here, the Bank of Korea cuts its interest rates from 3.5% to 3.25%. So that's great. That's what we want to see. We want to see low interest rates, meaning that money is cheap. And when money is cheap, more of it can flow into the financial markets. Here we see the Federal Reserve just cut interest rates by 50 basis points. The US interest rate decisions actually is 5%, and it was forecasted that it was going to be 5.25% and previously 5.5%. So massive rate cut after 2020, because after 2020 they started to money was flowing like crazy into the markets, because after COVID they were printing so much money, and afterwards they wanted to gain more control over the inflation, so they started to increase the interest rates. And now recently the Fed started to reduce interest rates again. So that's nice. Here you see a post or a tweet. He's saying, after the first time in 5 years, interest rates have dropped from 4.35% to 4.1%. So this is about Australia. And another one, the Bank of England just cut interest rate by 0.25%. So again, that's what we want to see. We want to see interest rates drop. We want to see the money printer printing more money. And that is a great sign that Bitcoin is getting ready for a new leg up, because the global liquidity is expanded. So here you see another chart. Here you see the global liquidity in blue. And this global liquidity is made up of the Fed. So that's the Federal Reserve, the US Central Bank, the ECB, the European Central Bank, then the People's Bank of China, the Bank of Japan, and a bunch of other central banks which are concerned with their money supply. So you see that they are adding more money to the global M2, the global liquidity. And what do we see? Every time the money supply is expanded, we see usually that the price of Bitcoin goes up. So probably by now you understand the point that I'm trying to make. Whenever more money gets pumped into circulation, it generally means that the price of assets, financial assets, go up. Why? Because when there's more money in circulation, every unit of money becomes worth less. And when people experience this, then they start to search for great assets that they can invest their money into in order to protect themselves against inflation, and even better, to improve their purchasing power over time by investing in something that appreciates in value much faster than inflation increases over time. And that's actually when you're able to win the game of life. That's what you want to do. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Now that you're seeing this global liquidity being expanded, do you believe that this might be the next big trigger for this Bitcoin bull market? Yes, it has been boring. Yes, it has been choppy. And yes, people are super sour, salty, whatever. Even I'm a little bit, agitated. I expected that, we would have been much further in this bull market right now. But it is exactly at these points in time where you need to step back and you need to look under the hood and understand what is really going on. You shouldn't look at the price of Bitcoin right now. You shouldn't look at the newspaper headlines, because all of that can be manipulated by the institutions, by the whales, the big players behind the scenes that are pulling all of the strings. Not that long ago, I recorded a video about how the whales are manipulating the market. I think it's a very interesting video to have a look at, because it will help you to understand how the big players right now are manipulating the prices so that they can scoop up as much Bitcoin as possible at these cheap prices, because they understand that Bitcoin is dirt cheap right now compared to where it can go in the future. And they want to scare the average retail investor, they want them to panic, they want them to freak out and sell their Bitcoin at a discount so that these large institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, even the Trump organization can gobble up as much Bitcoin as possible. Because trust me, the world elites, they're all in on this. They understand. Larry Fink, BlackRock, Fidelity, Trump, they all understand the game that is being played right now. The real question is, are you going to become a victim of their game, or are you going to play the game like them and come out victoriously? So I'm curious to hear your choice, your perspective on the market right now in the comments below. So here's another chart which shows the MSCI, which is, if I'm correct, it's an index of emerging markets and the global liquidity. So basically, MSCI World. So this is a index of a bunch of mid and large cap stocks. So an index not only of, for example, the S&P 500, where you're only focusing on the US market, but these contain mid and large cap stocks of the entire world. And again, what you're seeing is that whenever global liquidity is increasing, this stock also tends to go up. So in short, whenever more cash is being added to the system, assets within the financial market tend to go up. Here you see the global M2 compared to Bitcoin year over year. So that's just another perspective. So the global M2 year over year, that's the blue line, and Bitcoin is the black line. So again, you see a very directionally correlated relationship. So whenever the blue line tends to go up, the price of Bitcoin goes up. Whenever the blue line goes up, Bitcoin's price tends to go up. And now you see that, again, we are at a point where probably the blue line is going to go up from here, meaning Bitcoin's price will probably go up. But that's up to you. It's no guarantee. Again, I just want to put all of this into perspective because, yeah, it's very frustrating right now. The market is very painful. The big players are playing a lot of games, but I want you to understand all of this within the broader context so that you can stay calm, you can stay calculated, and you can stick to your game plan. Yeah, here's just, again, another perspective. I've shown this chart now in a few different views. The final one that I want to end this video with is the following. Here you see the stablecoin supply, which is the blue line. So why am I talking about the stablecoin supply? Well, think about it. In the traditional financial markets, we're talking about fiat money, euros, dollars, yens, yuans, that are basically the liquidity of the system. But within crypto, the main liquidity are stablecoins. So stablecoins, you've got different stablecoin issuers, Tether, Circle, and you can basically buy stablecoins from them. You can wire money to their bank account or their custodian account, and they will wire USDC or USDT to you, so you can mint these stablecoins. Now, usually when we see the stablecoin supply increasing over time, we also see that Bitcoin's price tends to follow that as well, because more liquidity is being pumped into the crypto market, and a lot of that is going to flow into Bitcoin. So that's oftentimes a leading indicator that the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. So there's many signs right now that are showing that global liquidity is about to expand, and when this does, we're all in for a nice ride. Potentially the next big leg of the bull market will be triggered by this. What do you think? Do you think that this is going to be the next big catalyst that is going to send the price of Bitcoin to new all-time highs? The catalyst that we're all waiting for right now. All right, hey, do me one quick favor. If you enjoyed watching this video, please smash the like button so I know that you got good value out of it. For me, it's a great feedback mechanism. And if you haven't done so yet, also make sure to subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be posting regular videos just like this one to help you to make sense of everything that's going on in the crypto market right now and to help you to position yourself for maximum profits. All right, thanks for watching. Peace out, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.